welcome everyone to Rittenhouse Needlepoint here in the heart of beautiful Philadelphia. My name is Stephen and I am one of the owners of the shop here, and today we're going to be learning the basket weave stitch. The basket weave stitch falls under the umbrella term of tent stitch. The tent stitch is the basic needlepoint stitch. It consists of a single stitch across one intersection of the canvas threads from the lower left to the upper right, like so. That's a tent stitch. There's several different ways that we can make a tent stitch. One is called the half cross, one is called Continental, and the third is basket weave. These stitches all appear the same on the front side of the canvas. There is a slight difference, but to the untrained eye, they will appear basically the same. However, when we turn the canvas over on the back side, we can see a marked difference in how the stitches appear. On the far left here, I have the half cross stitch, which looks like a bunch of sticks or poles, and you can see exposed canvas in between the rows. This is not a good thing. Needlepoint wears from the back side of the canvas first, and so the more coverage of thread you have on the back of the canvas, the more durable your stitches will be. So the half cross method is not a good method of doing the tent stitch, and it's not one that we will teach. We do, however, teach the Continental Method and the basket weave. We've discussed the Continental before, but you can see from this, the Continental stitch has a nice padding on the back side in vertical rows or horizontal rows. Each row is independent of the other row though, however, and that's what makes the difference between the Continental and the basket weave stitch. The basket weave stitch is executed in diagonal rows, and it creates a basket weave character on, a basket woven character on the back side of the canvas. It's the interlocking of these diagonal rows which creates such a strong stitch and makes the stitch non-distorting. I have a piece of canvas here that's been marked. The intersections have been marked. The horizontal are in blue, the vertical are in pink. And you can see from down here, they alternate position. If one intersection is pink, then the very next one will be blue, and then pink, and then blue, and that's true both horizontally and vertically. However, if you look here, I've traced a diagonal row of threads, or intersections, I should say, and you can see that when we go on a diagonal, it's always the same type of thread that's on top at any particular intersection. So here I've traced a row of horizontal intersections, and here I've traced a row of vertical intersections. Lastly, you can see this is how we do the basket weave stitch. We go back and forth or up and down the canvas on the same type of intersection. So the blue row of diagonal row would be a down row. The pink row is an up row. Down row, up row. I can create a knot at the bottom of my thread, which I will then place on the front side of my canvas. I'll follow this row of holes all the way over to the right and come forward. And now I'm going to be stitching toward this knot, making sure that I cover the thread on the back side, and when I do get to the knot, I'll cut it off, and then I will have anchored my thread. So, as I mentioned, the basket weave consists of tent stitches. So a tent stitch is you come forward in the lower left-hand corner, you go up and to the right diagonally across one canvas intersection and go down in the upper right-hand corner. Now before I go all the way down, I want to make sure that I've made a mental note about what type of intersection I have here. I'm stitching currently over a vertical thread, so that would be a down intersection. Vertical, down, VD. So in order to look for my next stitch, I will go down and to the right, and I will find the next vertical thread right here. stitch over that. Again, I look down and to the right for the next vertical thread. I'm making a down row, which consists exclusively of downward stitches, or stitches over down intersections. Each time I cover the intersection, I look down and to the right for the next stitch. Now you can see that there is a little bit of a space in between these stitches, and that's okay. That's just as it should be. When I come back and I do my upward row, I will fill in that space between the two stitches. So I'm getting to the end of my row here. I'm going to say that this intersection is the last intersection that's been painted turquoise. And now it's time for me to go back in the other direction, to change direction, go from a down row to an up row. This is the second little tricky part of learning basket weave. And there's several different ways that you can remember how to change direction. One is to execute what's called a turn stitch, which would be a single continental stitch. Now when I say a continental stitch, what I mean is that instead of looking down and to the right for my next stitch diagonally, I'm going to look for my next stitch either vertically or horizontally. In this case, it's vertically. So now I've changed the type of intersection that I'm stitching over. This is a horizontal thread. Before I had been stitching over vertical threads. And a horizontal thread is an up intersection. And up intersections, you know, when we stitch over up intersections, we create an up row. So I'm constantly looking up and to the left for my next stitch. Now, my favorite way of remembering how to change direction is to look at the intersection itself. This is my final intersection of the up row. And I'm going to look at this intersection. It's a horizontal intersection. And in my mind, I envision this as an arrow, and it's pointing to the left. So my next stitch is immediately to the left. And that is over a vertical thread. So we're beginning our downward row. When we get down here and we do our final vertical stitch, we again will look to the thread to tell us which direction we should be going for our final stitch. In this case, it's a downward arrow, and so I would go immediately below. But first, let me create my downward row here. Here we go. I'm at my final stitch here of the down row. And again, I'm looking toward the stitch to tell me where should I go for my next stitch. This is a down arrow. My next stitch will be immediately underneath. Now, if this trick of learning walk up the steps, down the poles, and look to the intersection to tell you where the next stitch is when you're changing direction doesn't work for you, you can simply memorize the rule, which is when you're going from an up row to a down row, your next stitch is immediately to the left. And when you're going from a down row to an up row, you look underneath for the first stitch of the up row. Now, when you're ending your thread and you're stitching in diagonal rows, you want to end your thread by running it horizontally or vertically on the back side of the canvas. So I'm going to cut off my waist knot now. I'm going to pull up here on the knot itself, and I'm pulling up pretty tightly because I want the thread to snap back onto the other side. And I'm going to end my thread by running it through the back of some of these stitches. So I'm going to go vertically. It's a little hard to do when you're working with a frame. I'm going to come back and do it again in the opposite direction because really that wasn't a long enough area. We're just going to run it again, and I'm going to cut this thread nice and close so we don't have any errant threads on the back side. That about does it for our lesson today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out our website, www.rittenhouseneedlepoint.com or myneedlepoint.com, and be sure to check out some of our future podcasts. Thanks for watching.